I love how that works. Hi, good afternoon, everyone. Good afternoon. I'm so excited that you're here and I'm here with you. And I can feel there's a lot of energy in the room, so we want to release that and just give like a scream and a round of applause that we're so happy to be here. So I'm Heidi Holder, the Frederick P. and Sandra P. Rose Chair of Education at the Met, and I would like to welcome you to tonight's program. Now there's a teeny bit of housekeeping. We have a full house tonight, and I wanted to let you know that the emergency exits are here and here. And the door in which you came in is also an emergency exit. And if in the case of an emergency, we have security officers stationed at each of these exits in order to help you leave this room if we needed to do that. Now, we are thrilled and honored to have fashion pioneer Dapper Dan with us for a conversation this afternoon. You've probably seen Dapper Dan's rare ensemble from 1987 that's currently on view in the exhibition Superfine, Tailoring Black Style. It's a jacket of brown and tan leather with all over LV monogram and a milk collar. You know, I can feel like I'm wearing it. And that was made for Jam Master Jay with a pair of pants for DJ Hurricane. Now, the clothing demonstrate defining elements of hip-hop style, including the appropriation and recontextualization of cultural symbols, especially luxury brand logos. Tonight, we will hear a conversation between Dapper Dan and guest curator Monica L. Miller about that ensemble, his legacy, his personal reflections on dandyism and style, and the ideas that continue to inspire his work. Now, tonight's programming and much of the programming for Superfine Tailoring Black Style and its accompanying publication would not have been possible without the generous support of numerous organizations and individuals. Our deepest gratitude goes to Louis Vuitton for their leading sponsorship of the exhibition. We also extend our thanks to Instagram, the Hobson Lucas Family Foundation, Africa Fashion International, founded by Dr. Precious Malloy Mostep, and Tyler Perry with the Perry Foundation. We are especially grateful for the continued commitment from our longstanding partner, Condé Nast. Now, it's my pleasure to share a teeny bit more about tonight's speakers. Dapper Dan pioneered streetwear in the 1980s, co-opting luxury branding to design original garments with high-end details. Known for using exquisite leathers or other fine materials, he first drew powerful New York City hustlers as clientele, who all came and gathered around him due to his strong street reputation as a legendary professional gambler and a dandy. He has outfitted LL Cool J, Salt and Pepper, Mike Tyson, Jay-Z, Beyonce, and many more. Dapper Dan's boutique reopened in 2017 in a major partnership with Gucci, which he will talk about tonight. He's been honored with the Council of Fashion Designers of America's Jeffrey Bean Lifetime Achievement Award. He is the first designer to win this award without ever staging a fashion show, a solo show, so that's really a big deal. Now, Monica L. Miller is guest curator of Superfine and professor and chair of Africana Studies at Barnard College, Columbia University. Superfine is inspired by Miller's 2009 book, Slaves to Fashion, African Dandyism and the Styling of Black Diasporic Identity. She specializes in African American and American literature and cultural studies. Her research interests include 20th and 21st century African American literature, film, and contemporary art, contemporary literature, and cultural studies of the Black diaspora, performance studies, and more. So, it's about to happen. So, put your shoulders back, right? So please join me in giving a very big welcome, you know the big welcome, right? To Monica Miller and Dapper Dan.
Good evening, everyone.
Hi, guys.
I would like to thank Heidi for that warm introduction, and of course, I want to thank Dap for being here tonight with me. I'm thrilled to finally be on stage with you. When Superfine was announced, I think that everybody's mind went straight to Dapper Dan because of your impeccable style and your impact on fashion history. For the curatorial team, it was absolutely essential that we have your designs in the exhibition. The Dapper Dan legend and legacy is central to the story that we are telling in the exhibition, as it demonstrates a central dynamic and energy, like the energy we have in here tonight, within Black culture and dandyism, which is the art of signifying, repeating, revising, reversing, and transforming what has come before, and I hope you all heard Missy Elliott there. The creation of an original with ingenuity that displays survival skills and joy. In the Superfine exhibition, we present dandyism as an expressive form of resilience, of resistance, and creativity in the service of freedom, liberation, finesse, and a Dapper Dan word, flyness. Dapper Dan, it is a privilege and an honor that you are here, and I'm delighted to be in conversation with you here tonight and to give you your flowers right here and now. So let's get to it.
Thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you.
Okay. Dap, you have said very modestly, I don't think of myself as an artist or even as a couturier. I'm just using fashion to tell their stories. But let's start with your story. What is your first fashion memory? How and why did fashion, clothing, dress, and style become interesting to you?
Fashion, for me, started with pain. When you grow up and you have holes in your shoes, you can't help but think about fashion. And that's how it was for me. In my neighborhood, I come from the poorest neighborhood in Harlem. And we had this system where once you get holes in your shoes, you put paper. We got really creative and started putting linoleum in it, you know? And I said, if I ever get the opportunity, I'm gonna change all of this. And what I learned from, as I got a little bit older, 13, I was able to wear my brother's clothes. Mm-hmm. And I lived in the worst building on Lexington Avenue, right by the Harlem River. You could throw a rock from my building into the Harlem River, where we swam and everything, right? But the experience for me with dressing, I learned how transformative it was. Because when I put on my brother's clothes and went to 125th Street, nobody knew what building I lived in. They didn't know how many rats and roaches was in my building. So the transformative feeling of having clothes hit me early on. I was 11 to 12 when that was taking place.
So what were the items of your brother's wardrobe that really, really interested you?
Sorry?
What were the items in your brother's wardrobe that really interested you?
Which items?
Yeah, what did he have?
It all starts with shoes. We got to, because I remember what the Reverend used to say, you know, we had holes in our shoes and stuff like that. He said, don't worry about the holes in your shoes. You're going to heaven. All God's children's got her shoes.
Yep.
So everything started with shoes, you know. So when I had the holes in my shoes, I came in the house. I told my mother my feet hurt because the holes had got big and linoleum wasn't working. Mm-hmm. I told my mother, I said, well, my feet is killing me. But my brother was right there, right? My brother said, don't worry about it. He said, don't worry about it. He said, come on, Danny boy. They call me Danny boy, right? Mm-hmm. And he walked me 5 blocks to the Goodwill. Yeah, and we went in the Goodwill. He said, you see any shoes you like? I said, yeah, I like them right there. Some split toes, you know, split toes, mahogany brown split toes. I said, those right there. He said, take your shoes off. I took my shoes off. He said, put them in the rack. I put them in the
Okay.
I put them in the rack. He said, all right, try the other ones on. He said, how'd it feel? I said, they feel so good. He said, let's go.
Okay.
So it all starts with shoes, you know. Yeah.
There is nothing like a good accessory. All right. I'm going to go back a little bit. I want to start here. Okay. So people who have read your memoir will know that your entry into the fashion world was inspired, I mean, apart from that moment with your brother, by travel in Africa. You made 2 trips, the first as a student in 1968, and the second as a fan to attend the Rumble in the Jungle in 1974. At the end of the first trip to Africa, you said this: "I came back to Harlem with nothing but African clothes. I'd sold all my clothes at the markets and exchanged them for traditional robes and garments. I also had some tailors make me new slacks and suits done in African tailoring styles. They fit me better than anything I'd ever bought or shoplifted from a store in New York City.
Yeah.
Man, I was fly, and I was fly in a way that made me feel good about myself on a deeper level. I've been told many lies about what it meant to be black. The truth I witnessed in Africa was that we were doers and makers. That trip, seeing all those skilled artisans and tailors in all those different countries making beautiful things, had a permanent impact on me." This is continuing, this is the last thing. "Looking back, I realized that what really changed me and my whole concept of fashion. It went deeper than I'd ever realized. Though I didn't know it yet, that was the seed I went to Africa to find." You've also said that in order to understand the tree, you have to study the seed. So tell me more about Africa as this seed for you.
Yeah. Well, let me give you a little background how all this came about.
Yeah.
I was like a young man in Harlem, didn't want to get stuck on the corners, I wanted to walk away from all the street activity. So I'm 23 years old, and I don't want to be part of the subculture that's destroying everybody. And I always wanted to be a writer, so I went back to school. Urban League had an educational program. I went back, I got involved in the Urban League's educational program, and we started a newspaper called 40 Acres and a Mule. So I'm writing for this news, before Mike Spike Lee he was in the,
Yeah.
So I'm writing for this radical newspaper, 40 Acres and a Mule. We have, people from Columbia, people from all the major publications coming in,
yeah.
and children's all about writing. So I'm writing for this newspaper, but all of the young guys were like me. We were all radicals, and we were all angry. We had this anger in us about what was happening in America, right? And we had different professors come in. One of the professors that came in, we had Dr. Henry Clark,
Yeah.
we had Dr. Ben Joachim, all kind of, from different walks of life. But when Dr. Henry Clark came one day, and a student asked him, one of the guys on the editorial board, he said, if we're the original, meaning black people, he said, if we're the original people on the planet, why are we going through what we're going through, right? So we're all angry about what's happening to us, and we all blaming it on the American structure, on the European structure. And Dr. Henry Clark says to me, to all of us, he says, what happened is a transgression that we made against ourselves before Europeans came into our life. I have never heard that before. All of us was focused on 400 years of slavery, and nobody considered about, well, what happened to that, right? But Dr. Henry Clark never elaborated. So I had the opportunity to go to, through Columbia offered me an internship leading to a scholarship, or I can go to Africa and do a live-in with families in 7 different countries. So I said, I'm going to Africa to find out exactly what he was talking about.
Right.
And that's what changed my whole life. I said, I learned how, and then I read Malcolm, and when I read Malcolm's book, and I read it in his speech to the grassroots, he said, if you want to understand the flower, study the seed.
Yeah.
I said, so I'm going to go back and find out exactly what's happening.
Yes.
And that changed me. I couldn't talk to people wasn't ready to hear me talk about that until, it took me a while to write the book, because everybody wants, a lot of people are angry, and they want to stay angry. you know. But for me, I say I'm going to find out exactly how to start, and that's how I ended up in Africa the first time.
First time.
But the second time was the great time because Urban League and that scholarship sent me the first time. But the second time, I say I'm going back. I'm going to spend my own money. I'm going to different countries, and that's when I had the other experience about. I had money. I could buy, you know, ornaments and paintings and everything, and I really got involved deeply in there. And that's when I saw, I didn't realize I was transforming, and then when I came back to the city, I said, I don't want to get stuck in the street, but I know all the people in the street. I know street culture. I know gangster culture. I knew middle-class blacks and upper-class blacks in my neighborhood was not going to buy it from me. You know, because all I wanted to do was luxury, you know. But so the only ones available for me was the gangsters, so, and the entertainers and the basketball players. So what I focused on was them. And I remembered, you know, here's an interesting story. I hate to go long. Let me tell you how I got into the logo thing, right? So I'm making clothes, luxury clothes. I started out with furs. I say, if I make furs, if I can make one fur coat and make $1,000 profit. I say, I know I can sell 100 by the wintertime with all the gangsters I know. All right? So what I did was I focused on silks, you know, leathers, exotic stuff like that. But the #1 gangster came in the store and he had a Louis Vuitton pouch, right? With all these, and everybody, he pulling $100 bills out of the Louis Vuitton pouch, and everybody's getting excited. I say, why are they excited? I make clothes. That's $5 worth of vinyl he got there. And then it occurred to me, I say, I'm making furs and leathers and all this exotic stuff, and they excited about that vinyl. I say, wait a minute. Imagine if I can have them walking around looking like luggage.
Looking like luggage?
You know, so I took that same concept, you know, and put it in clothes, because I had already knew the power of symbolism, because when I was changing my life, I studied religion, and then when I studied religion, the further back I went, I noticed that everything evolved from some kind of religious symbol.
Right.
So I don't want to go on a big tangent. Next question.
Okay. I'm going to take you back, though, because what I really am interested in here is not only do you make people look like luggage, right, but the beauty of that gesture was the tailoring associated with it. So tell me about the tailors that I know that you met.
Oh yeah,
right?
the amazing thing.
How those African tailors influenced you to start making people look like luggage.
I'm glad you asked that question, Monica, so I could put something to the rest, right? Because I only hired African tailors. So all the dudes, all the people in the hood now, they be saying, well, why you ain't hiring none of us? This is 40 years ago. You know what minimum wage was? Minimum wage was $3.35, right? I paid the Africans, but I paid them $5. And plus, we didn't have nobody trained in fashion, right?
Right.
So I remember, I said, wait a minute. I had this African people making my clothes. I said, I'm going to get them. So I hired all Africans, you know? And they had the same type of work ethic that I had acquired from my father. You know, when my father came up from the top, my father was born in 1898, you know? 33 years after the Emancipation Proclamation. My father came to New York in 1910, you know, and he got a job. This is a family story, right? When he got a job, he had to teach himself how to read, which made me a big reader. He had to teach himself how to read to get a job as a caretaker in the New York City Housing Authority, right? But my father worked for them for 15 years, and in that 15 years, he was never absent, and he was late only once, and that was the Great Snowstorm of 1947. So that work ethic that my father had, I acquired that. And the Africans that came in, they were like that, you know. But my friends that I was growing up with, they didn't want to be involved in fashion anyway at the time. 40 years ago, you know, in the hood, anything in fashion was like a sissy thing, you know, until I turned it into a hustle.
Right. Okay. Fair enough. All right, we're going to start. Actually, we'll go here. Okay. So I want to dig into that story a little bit more, right? When you brought luxury to Harlem, right, in the 80s. and you said this, they had to see, this is folks in Harlem, but also hustlers, had to see that I had taken these brands and pushed them into new territory. I knocked them up, but I didn't knock them off. I blackenized them, right? Okay, so I want to know really more specifically, like, how did this idea come to mind, and how did you pull it off, right? And what is the power? You started to talk about it a little bit, right, in terms of the relation the transformation you were making, right? And similar to the transformation, I think that we talked about this before, that Malcolm was making, right? So what is the power, or what did you understand the power of a label or a logo to be?
The transformation is like people like myself, we wanted to be recognized. And here it is, like, it's been 40 years since I introduced Logomania.
Right.
You know, and it's no secret why Louis Vuitton brought Virgil on. And when you look at the collection, you see they brought, Pharrell on.
Yeah.
And when you look at the collection, you see that there's still
Yes.
this concept of Logomania. So I introduced Logomania a long time ago, but it's people who want something that they can identify with.
Okay.
You know what I'm saying? Except for the people at the top, they no longer need it. You know, but those aspiring people, especially the ones I was coming to, all the rappers, the people who are newly rich, they want to be recognized that they got money. So that's why the logo was so important.
Okay.
You know, and that's why I said, okay, the logo's important. Gucci give you 2 G's, I'll give you 100. You know, I'll build on it. But then again, I understood music. And I know how we relate to music, and like we'll take a song, you know, and when we get through with the song, you'll never know that song is the same song.
Same thing again.
So that's
right.
the same thing I did with fashion. I say I'm gonna do to fashion the same way jazz musicians did to music, you know. And I was always impressed by the power of music. So my older brothers, the ones who I learned from, grew up in the jazz era, and I watched them and how they, dressed and who was their inspiration for dressing, you know? And I saw how Miles, how he dressed, and how he in his transformation. That was one of the big influences on me on how I approach fashion. When I saw Miles Davis, when he was playing bebop, you know, how he dressed.
Yes, tell me.
And then when he went to a punk rock concert, and he saw how they dressed. And then he changed to that. He changed his music and he changed his way of dressing. And then that's when I discovered the power of music, right? And then I paid the most amazing part of anything that I knew was the Beatles. And I found out how powerful our music was from the Beatles. Yep. So it's in the 60s, and we're in this age, the European young kids, they're into transcendental meditation. Because of the Beatles. Yeah, because of what the Beatles came. Yep. Then I saw what the Beatles did and how they took our musical genre and just turned culture around. When they brought back the guru from India, and John Lennon said, "Damn, we're like Jesus now." You know, I say, "Wow, look at the power of music." So that's why I always focus on how can I use music as a platform, you know, to do fashion.
Yeah, no, that's amazing. I mean, you've always talked about the way that fashion and music are kind of mirrors of each other, right? And in some ways, that was an inspiration for us when we were thinking about your ensemble and your work in the Superfine exhibition. So I wanted to ask you a little bit more about music and fashion, but also specifically, right, this ensemble that we have here in the exhibition. Yeah. DAP's ensemble is in a part of the exhibition that's called Cool, and it's precisely related to what you said, right, in terms of the inspiration for that section was based on 2 photographs. One was Art Kane's Great Day in Harlem, which is an incredible photograph of some of the most prominent jazz musicians, right, at the time. And the other photograph that's in the exhibition that's part of this section is Gordon Parks' A Great Day in Hip Hop, right? So both of these photographs are featuring musicians that are now the legends, right, of both jazz and hip hop, two musical genres that entirely changed American fashion, right, in the latter part of the 20th century. So I want to know what you remember, if anything, about your ensemble, right, that's here in the exhibition. Heidi described it when we began today, right? The jacket worn by Jam Master Jay, and the pants worn by, or made for DJ Hurricane. What do you remember about those ensembles?
Okay, so
Let me go back, actually. Let's do this one.
When you look at the jacket, you see that's a mink collar.
Yep.
Yes, and the inside is also mink, you know? And I made jackets like that with mink inside and logos outside. And
Right,
made them reversible.
1977,
Now, the
late
reason
70s.
that the rappers wanted that, because in the beginning, in the golden age of hip hop,
Right.
the rappers actually wanted to be like the gangsters. You know, the rappers used to have to stay outside the store until the gangsters leave and see what they want, because that was the image that they was
Right.
trying to portray. And even today, you see vestiges of them trying to look like gangsters with all the diamonds and all the big cars. All of that was part of it. But this particular thing, I brought both combinations together, because the rappers wanted their own look, you know. And now I had already started with the logos
Yes.
and everything, so I just brought both of those things together. And what I discovered was Jam Master Jay, all the rappers, they all started coming. And then the big thing about all this here, Russell Simmons used to say, okay, your tracks is finished. Now go get an outfit from Dapper Dan. And that's when I found out the energy came together between fashion, you know what I mean, and music. Prior to that, you know, we made inroads into fashion, but prior to that, we never combined it like that.
Right.
We're creating something with a new idea, and we're embracing it with a new musical genre.
Yeah. No, I mean, I love the way that the work that you did, I mean, it's a combination of kind of like, it's like sampling, right? I mean, you were sampling luxury logos and transforming them into another genre, right? So there's a way in which, when you described your orientation toward music and fashion as related to, in some ways, both jazz and hip hop, there's this incredible, I think, collaboratory.
No.
It seems like a collaboration, right? And then it's also, you know, doubly inspiring.
Yeah. Well, I spoke to some young students today, and what I told them is that, and I tell this to the young students in the street, I say, we all have this genius somewhere inside of us, you know, and all of us, or very few of us, may not be able to reach that level, you know, but how I overcame all of that is that no matter what I was thinking of myself or thinking of my creations, I always left something inside of me stay there and the rest go out. Every artist and every gangster that I dress, I would sit them down and ask them how they feel, what they want to look like, what are they trying to say.
Right.
You know, and that's throughout the years how I stayed relevant. So what I did over the years is that everything I did was part of a collaboration, you know. I see where the artist wants to go. I see where whoever it is wants to go, and I show them how to get there, you know. And even when I got the collaboration with Gucci, I told Gucci, I said, listen, I have to be able to continue to do my couture,
Right.
you know, even though I can have a collection. And I had the insight to know that all the brands, and you see how they rise and fall, because they get defined.
Right.
Once a brand defines itself, that's what it always is, you know? So I always try to keep it moving, you know, like I often equate it to the Harlem River that I used to swim in, you know? Harlem River, you gotta know when to dive in and know when to dive in, and when to come out. You gotta pay attention to the current, and that's how fashion works.
Right.
I see where the music is going. You know, I see where the impulse that's generating the music. I see where that, and I embrace that.
Right.
Like I told the students earlier, I do not dictate fashion. I translate culture.
Well said. Well said. So let's go back. I mean, I'm really intrigued when you say about what you're saying about the Harlem River, right? So let's go back to Harlem more generally, right? You and your family have been in Harlem for generations now. I want to know more about Harlem as an inspiration for you, right? What lessons you took from growing up there, right? That then you really that fueled, right, your design practice when we get to the 1980s. So what is it about Harlem that does that for you?
I was fortunate because I saw Harlem that had concrete, what I call concrete inspiration. So when I'm growing up in Harlem, we had, all the celebrities were still living there because they had redlining and,
Right.
you know what I mean?
Yes.
All these different things, segregation and redlining kept all the, people there.
Right, keep it people there.
All our entertainers.
Different
Yeah,
classes
I've
of
seen
people.
all
yes.
the time. We see famous people in Harlem, and they lived there. Up on Sugar Hill.
Up on Sugar Hill,
We talking
yes.
about. They lived in the better neighborhoods, so they were still there. I had the opportunity to see that.
Yes.
And so seeing that inspired me. Even
Okay.
though I was poor and things like that, I lived in the poorest neighborhood, and like I talk about now, when you see all the brownstone. Well, I got me a brownstone now, but you see all the brownstone.
Yeah.
You see all the people living in the brownstone.
I'm going to show you a
like
brownstone.
that. But all of that was instrumental in inspiring me, seeing them. After they left, and I see the young people today, they don't have that. But the biggest thing I learned about, I think my high school teacher told me, she said, who is it that knows London when only London they know? I said that earlier to the student.
Right.
I didn't know Harlem till I left and go to Africa and come back. That's when I really, really started paying attention to what Harlem was and what it is. And I see, I'm in the Eiffel Tower. When I went to France, I'm in the Eiffel Tower. I hear people talking about Harlem. Everywhere I went, they talking about Harlem. And I'm saying, wow, all this great culture. So when I came back, I started to really embrace it. And I studied the history of Harlem.
Yes.
But, and I found out how Harlem developed. So the inspiration for me came from being there at the right time. I'm the first generation of the Great Migration that came from the South. So that generation that I come from, those people came like the first black people that migrated from Africa. They were the hard workers.
Right.
So I saw that, and I embraced that, and I saw how they made it,
Yeah. We've also talked a little bit about the Harlem Renaissance, right? Which was
that's my favorite subject.
Yeah. Okay.
That's my favorite subject. We'll be here for a minute, yo.
Okay.
The Harlem Renaissance. That's
go ahead.
No, I got to go on that one, right?
No. I don't have a question. Just go ahead.
I'm fascinated with. I'm always bragging about Harlem, But one of the most fascinating things about Harlem is that Harlem is all of us, and I'm the most fortunate because I grew up in East Harlem. The Bougies had West Harlem. I grew up in East Harlem with my poor Puerto Rican friends, my poor Irish friends, my poor Greek friends, my poor Jewish friends, and all of that. So
right.
I'm without realizing it, I'm in a gumbo of culture.
Yes.
You'll never find this nowhere else in the world. Poor Irish, poor Italians, poor blacks, poor Puerto Ricans in the same space at the same time. When I went to Chicago, I said, where the Puerto Ricans at? They up there. Where the Jewish guys at? They up there. But we were all there in the same space at the same time. My friend like Bobby Bramandi, Richie Bramandi, my best friend.
Right. Yes.
Italian. Jackie Michaels, Irish, poor like me, a little better, but poor like me living in the same place, And so all this inspiration, all this thing that I'm learning, I didn't realize at the time. We had Harlem, when I was growing up, the first Puerto Rican Day Parade was in Harlem. The first West Indian Day Parade was in Harlem. The biggest San Gennaro Italian festival was in Harlem. So all this culture was evolving, right behind me. But when I went out of Harlem and I came back, that's when I realized, wow, I saw all of this evolving. So that's what made a difference. Then that made me want to know, how did Harlem come to be Harlem?
Right.
Then I started studying Harlem, and I started saying, wow, we got pushed from, there was other Harlems.
Yes.
The 5 Points area
further
down.
Further
where the black burial ground was.
Yep.
We got pushed out
up.
of there. Then we went settled in San Juan Hill, got pushed out of there, got bulldozed out of there. Then we went in, Seneca Village in Central Park, got pushed out of there. I said, wow, we've been pushed around. You know? But so when we got to Harlem, right, when you got to Harlem, I said, this bigger, the influx in Harlem, everybody had got pushed up into Harlem, right? And so we got all of this going on, and they didn't push us out. They moved out.
True.
So I was there for all of that, and I began to study how that evolved and what took place. We had studied everything about the whole Renaissance era, and this is the biggest thing that I learned: how to approach the aesthetic.
Okay.
You know? So when I'm studying the Harlem Renaissance, how do you approach the aesthetic? So I started reading the New Negro,
100-year anniversary of the
Yeah,
New Negro
the
this
New
year.
Negro. When I read the book, The New Negro, and how they approach culture, and what Du Bois, and then the author of The New Negro, how he wanted culture to be represented of without any propaganda, just clean cut. He wanted us to be recognized just for our ability to produce culture. But Du Bois wanted to put a little propaganda in it to elevate us. Then I said, I have to look at all of this, if I'm going to be instrumental in changing culture. So,
Okay, so tell me about the propaganda in relationship to your work.
Well, with the propaganda, the approach with Du Bois was similar to his relationship when he was with Booker T. Washington. He didn't want the passive road. He wanted the confrontational road. And so I say, how can I incorporate this into fashion?
Yeah.
Right? Then I started reading a lot, and I read about the Battle of Versailles. All you students of fashion, you got to read the Battle of Versailles. Let me because sometimes I can't pronounce it. Eleanor Lambert. Yeah. And the Battle of Versailles.
Yes.
I say, and I saw what she did. I say, I got to do that in Harlem. In the Battle of Versailles, she is responsible for putting United States of America on the map in fashion, right? And she did it by taking us with her. You know, in the Battle of Versailles, she took 10 black models, right? And she took 10 black models. She took a Puerto Rican designer, a Latino designer, Oscar de la Renta. She took Stephen Burrows.
Yes.
And they battled the French. I say, wow, this is amazing. So I say, I got to study her. I got to study what she did, right? So I said, I want to replicate that in Harlem today, So I got to move away from what Du Bois was talking about. I got to move away from what they're talking about in the New Negro. I got to formulate and use that same kind of pattern
for now
to create that space in Harlem. So that's why I just opened up a new big space in Harlem on 5th Avenue, 116th Street. And what I'm going to be doing there is to try to create in that area a luxury space for us, where young people can learn. They have their Fifth Avenue.
Right.
It's time for
You're
us
going to
to
have
our
Harlem's Fifth Avenue. Excellent. Okay. So somebody asked you this question earlier today, but I loved your answer, so I'm going to ask it again now. And this is about dandyism, right? And looking at you in this dandy pose. As you know, dandyism can be a form of dress that is disciplined, right, and controlled. It can also be flamboyant and maximal, okay? I want to ask you in a minute, what does dandyism mean to you, and how do you think you or your designs resonate with the term? When I was reading your book, I was also struck by, and this is the aesthetic question following up on Du Bois, I was also struck by your own fashion vocabulary, which reveres the word fly. Here's what you said about fly, and then I want you to think about fly in relationship to dandyism. You said, and this is about the particular flyness of hustlers. Flyness wasn't about how handsome you were, although that helped. It was about something intangible, It was about style and how you carried yourself in the street. It was about your shoes, the way you wore your hat. It was about the car you drove and how fly your girl dressed. It was also about taking some new fashion risk that everyone else in the streets would be copying. Power was fly, and fly was power. So what's the relationship between being a dandy and being fly?
Okay, let me explain to you. Like, when you think about this whole concept of the dandy and how it came about, you have when you go back, you have to go to
I know you've done the research.
You got to go to Beau Brummel.
I know you've done the research, yes.
Yeah, you got to go back to Beau Brummel and what he did. So,
Okay.
Because
Explain
that's
that.
the prototype from which we got this expression, right?
Yes.
So Beau Brummel in his day would be equivalent to what I call, in my time, a boy wonder.
A boy wonder.
A boy wonder. I talk
Okay.
about this in my book.
All right,
a boy
say more.
wonder is that guy who comes up and he's dressing, he got that swag, he got that personality, he got that look, he got that car, and everybody wants to be like him.
Yes.
That's a modern day dandy. You know? You can't define dandy in terms, that they were defined before, because it's moving.
It's moving.
It's moving like the Harlem River. What is a dandy? It's moving because it's
that.
dandy is the effect that you have. Like Beau Brummel, it's the effect that he had. Beau Brummel, who they get dandyism from. It's the effect that you have.
Yes.
And what I would do is, I would find, there's an interesting story. The number one gangster in Harlem, right? Jack Jackson. And he's the one who was with John Gotti. He's told on John Gotti about Gene Gotti. A big criminal story. But anyway, so
Big criminal.
what I had to do,
Superfly.
is I had to convert him to what I was doing,
Okay.
right? Because he was considered the dandy.
He was the boy wonder.
Yeah, he was the boy wonder.
was the boy wonder.
But he didn't have the flash.
Okay.
But he had the cash.
Okay.
So I had to convert him. So he would go to all these events and stuff like that. I said, I got to figure out a way to dress him. So what I did was his lieutenant, I dressed his lieutenant. And his lieutenant went to the fair and came back and said, how are you going to have my lieutenant looking better than me? And then I had him and how, like, prior to social media, how did I
Yes.
become popular? It was
Right, it was through that.
It was
Yeah.
through the gangsters, because the gangsters, they went to all the major events, all the social gatherings, everything that was something. And all the gangsters around the country used to see them and say, yo, where they getting this Gucci from? Where they getting this Fendi from? Where they getting all this designer stuff from? And so now they go into the stores and asking for it. And then they got to know, some of the other gangsters, right?
Right.
And then the word got back. Oh, that's coming from Harlem, that guy Dapper Dan in Harlem.
Yep.
Then so I had to be open 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, 365 days a year, for 10 years straight, never closed. Now, I couldn't get no Americans to work that. I had a shift.
Oh, no.
When me and my African brothers, they working 11-hour shifts. They're
Right.
almost there. So
Hopefully
I
well
had to work with that. All
compensated.
y'all wonder why. Yeah.
Okay. All right. Okay.
Oh, this is a good part.
This is good. All right.
This is a good part. This is the future, guys.
Okay. This is the future, and also today, right? When Dan and I met before we got out here, I said, I really want to know how you chose what you are wearing today, right? And then, because I was thinking of its relationship to this, right, to the future.
Okay.
Right?
I want you guys to take this part of the conversation home with you. And if you haven't had dinner yet, when you have dinner with your family, I want you to talk about this, okay? Because this
Okay.
is really what I'm about right now, going forward, and what I'm trying to do. You understand? So I said, okay. They didn't let me in the fashion door. So I had to create a way to get in.
Yes.
So I took their symbols and used them in a way that they've never been used before. All right? So now that I have got accepted on a global level, it's time for our symbols. You know what I'm saying? So I had to lay a platform to use something that relates to us. So I said, okay, the Met Gala, this is the perfect time for me to do that. Now, you see the symbols I had there? Both symbols are the Sankofa sign. You know? What does that mean? That means go back and get. From the Akan in Ghana, it means go back and get so you can go forward. All of the things that that are known in the past, we need to go back and get them because they were wiped away out of our memory. You know, and especially the way America is known now, you know, they're not showing our history and stuff. But what we have to understand, there's no our history. The history is all of us.
All of us.
You know? So I said I needed a symbol, you know, that could tell that story. So that's why I got that symbol. You know? And this works for all of us because when we go back, and how did I arrive at that? I arrived at that by studying American symbols. When you look at the dollar bill, you look at the dollar bill, right? And you look at the crest, how America used the crest. That's an Egyptian symbol, you know? When you see the eagle and you see the eagle embracing the 13
The colonies.
spears in one hand and the olive branch in the other hand, I say, oh, we can use these symbols to say something to the world, right? So I say, just like America reached back and put the pyramid on the dollar bill to let us know. I say the founding fathers was trying to tell us something. And then when you see George Washington with the symbol, and he has the apron on, and his attire is saying something about the beginning, I say, oh, wait a minute, there's something going on here. You know, there's something going on here. I say, how can I extract that from history that reaches all of us? So when we go, my motto is to use my own symbol there. It has the DD in it, the Sankofa symbol. My model is that, right? But my motto is, out of one came many. And America's motto is, out of many, one. So we are connecting to the past where we need to be. Once we find out we are all one, then we can all bring it back together. That's why I like, you see the bird?
Yep.
With its head turned to the back? That's the egg it's taking off the back. You know, the egg, that represents the beginning. If we all go back to the beginning, we're all related. You know? So we got to go back and fix them so we can go forward. That's why I like this symbol.
Well done. Well done. Okay. This is a little bit more of a personal question. I want to know where your resilience comes from.
I'm sorry?
Your resilience, where does that come from, right? And how have you sustained your enthusiasm, right? And this incredible kind of soulful approach, right, to life over time?
You know, I had to start all over 3 times. 3 times they raided me, took everything. I had to go back to 125th Street with a table. I kept doing it, I kept doing it. And people wonder how you do that.
Yeah.
But what they fail to understand, you can't hurt me by taking everything away from me because I started out with nothing. Nothing can hurt me. Me starting out again, you can't hurt me. You can't punish me with not having nothing. You know? So every time they took everything away, I went right back to 125th Street. But in the main, and set up a table.
Right.
3 times. I had a 3-story building on 125th Street, a 2,000 square foot factory
Right.
on 120th Street. You know, they took everything, all the furs, all the leathers, and every time they took it, I started all over again. I started all over again. I wasn't for 40 years, no, 20 years, 25 years underground.
That's right.
But every time they take everything, I just start all over again. Start all over again. But I always prepared myself.
How?
To start all over again. Right? This is what the thing I said. I think you have a question when you ask me about my relationship to time.
Yes.
I don't look at time the same way as every other people. I look at time in terms of biology and psychology. What I'm thinking and how I allow my body to be, that's my time. Mm-hmm. You know, I think about what do I need to be thinking now? What should my body, how should my body be available to me now? So I never think about it. You know, I stop hanging out with my older friends. I said, no, man, I ain't thinking about that. You know what I'm saying? Because I think now. I live now. You know, I do everything I live in the now. And my thoughts, my body, I live in the now. I don't accept. The first thing I had to do is not accept this linear concept of time.
Right.
Once I did that, I was good.
Yeah. Well done. This is a little bit of a pivot, but I think maybe some people here, not a lot, I'm not going to assume, know you not only for the legend, right, of your designs, your relationship to hip hop, all of that, but a lot of people now know you from your Instagram account, right, which is phenomenal if you haven't been there. I want you to say a little bit. You said a little bit earlier about this was before social media, right? I want you to say a little bit about how you think about social media, right? And what role it plays for you in your life and in this nowness that really seems to be energizing you right now.
Well, I look at all the statistics associated with the people that I'm reading, and I started out with trying to change the way young people in Harlem. I started out there, you know. Mm-hmm. Then I found out that I could have a bigger reach than that because the artists are wearing me, and they're going to know what the artists have on, and they're going to know about the guy. So I looked at all that, and I look at the age bracket of who I'm reaching, and I designed everything to reach them. Not necessarily what they would wear, you know. Like with my Gap collection, right?
Yeah.
So I do luxury. So when Gap asked me to do that collection, I said, man, you know, I gotta dandy-rise this state.
Yeah.
You know, my concept is like,
right.
I started at the top when it comes to luxury. You start at the top in my community.
Right.
You know, you start at the top, you can go up and down. You start at the bottom. It's hard to get up.
Yeah.
You know, but I ain't gonna let them push me down. So I told the Gap, I said, yeah. So when you see me wear the hoodie, you see me wear with an ascot, right? You never see me with a tie on. I don't want to put young guys in, you know,
not wearing ties.
Putting a tie on the neck sometimes is corny. You know, so I said, how can I elevate their look? You know what I'm saying? Without being, you know, talking down to them. So when I get dressed and I walk through Harlem, I see what response I'm getting from the younger people. I say, okay, I got them now. You know, so I'm trying to reach them.
Okay.
You know what I'm saying? But I'm trying to elevate them because I know how necessary it is. Like, hip-hop was the vehicle that catapulted me. It was the wind below my wings when I started out. But now, a lot of people, younger people, are being influenced by some of the hip-hop artists who've been around for a while, and they haven't evolved.
Okay.
You know, I don't want to mention names, but they haven't evolved. So there's no inspiration for them, like, where you going next? In terms of the lyrics, in terms of the dressing style, you know, there is a great deal of devolution in the culture than it is evolution. So I try to address that. I try to slowly change that. That's why I'm going to be doing a lot of speaking engagements in Harlem at my new atelier. But we have to pay close attention to that. Music, as we said earlier, always has a great influence on the culture, you know. And then when you constantly see the music go, down, 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 from gangster rap to trap music to drill music. I have to be aware of all that and how to counter that, So through fashion, the young people get to know me, and they'll get to listen to me. So like I often say, I'm not trying to dress young bodies. I'm trying to dress young minds.
Yeah. I mean, your Instagram, what I really appreciate about it, right? Your Instagram is full of history lessons, right? You are a historian, right? I mean, you love history, I know. You are a historian, right? You do the research. You are out there. And I think when you say that you're trying to dress or create minds, you're doing the work, right, from so many multiple angles. I have one final a question that you have to answer quickly, right? And then we need to wrap up in a minute. But this is a question. I'm teaching a class right now that's based on the exhibition, and I asked my students what question they wanted me to ask you. So this is, some of them are here tonight. This is the question that they had for you. What do you think about when you get dressed, and are you your own reference?
No. I think about the mission, and no, I'm not my reference.
Okay.
The young people are my reference.
Okay, tell me about the mission.
The mission is, how can I dress that make them want to listen to me?
Okay.
Right.
Excellent.
I want them to
tell a
aspire
story.
to be like me.
Yes.
So I gotta dress in a way like, damn, I want to be like that. You know what I mean? And then it's especially, I know I'm winning when their girlfriends look at me and they tell me, when their girlfriend hunts you, why you don't dress like that?
Okay. Again, fair enough, Dan, fair enough. Okay. We are coming to the end of our evening, and I want to thank DAP, right? I also want to say that I'm really, really grateful for this opportunity to talk to you and to share the stage with you tonight, both as the Superfine guest curator, but also very, very personally, as a style-obsessed young black girl from the suburbs that was very, very influenced by seeing your designs on MTV. So thank you.
Thank you.
It has really been a joy.
Thank you.
Really been a joy to talk with you tonight and to celebrate your legendary career and really fundamental importance to the history of black fashion and dress. So thank you, Dap.
Thank you.
Big hands for Dap.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you, guys.
Big ups.
Thank you.